Hard they gather strong, pushing back the lefty's throng. With the red banner held high, marching forward through the night. Promises of old will keep as the donkeys start to weep. Stars and stripes forever sway. In the land of the brave we stay. We've got the power now in the heart of every town. We've got the power now. The Reds are going down.
With a flagpole planted firm,
golden dreams that won't decay,
marching proudly through the day. In the eagle's shadow by, we find our strength and take our pride. Let the voices echo loud, tearing through the waiting crowd. We've got the power now in the heart of every town. We've got the power now. The Reds are going down. Across the plains and mountains tall, hear the victory call. With courage and with might we strive in the light of freedom's guide. We got the power now in the heart of every town. We've got the power now. The Reds are going down.
In our little town so serene, where the grass is green and air so clean, we gather round the table every night. Joyful days, oh, once I yet, with values passed, with generations past, living life with love that'll surely last. As the city lights look bright, we hold to our roots tight. In our hearts the same old fires, guided by the good old days. Sharing moments with friends always divine. Working hard for what we seek, respecting each word we speak, holding dear to our family ties underneath these nostalgic skies. As the city lights so bright, got too tight, but our hearts the same old fire. Yeah, oh yeah. We sway with every change of time, but in our hearts, old love and soul, that may be in our heart, getting like a thought ain't not in this fast-paced world we can fight. Traditions keep our hearts going wild. But goodbye in our hearts in the ways we got it by the good old days.
Times are changing, feel the buzzing. Staying true when they're fussing. Keep the flag a-flying through stormy nights. With the star-spangled banner, I stand tall with manners. Cross my heart with hope in sight. Here comes freedom in the land of hope and free. With Stick to values in the trends. Families gather, let's defend. Hold the line, keep the bond alive. Truth in our vision. In God we make decisions for our dream. Truth, thrive and strive. Here comes freedom in the land of hope and glory. With liberty. We'll keep fighting for what's right, standing strong in the night. Here comes freedom in the land of hope and bravery. With liberty.
I'm glowing in the night, shining like a star in this atomic age, brighter by far. Untouchable energy, it's a glowing affair. Ready, ready, I'll take you everywhere. I'm untouchable now, feel the power in the air. Radioactive rhythm, but sense without care. Electric and alive in this atomic embrace. Unstoppable now in this glowing space.
Hello everyone, welcome to Culturama, where on this show we are trying to reclaim the zeitgeist of traditional Americana back into the United States. I want to thank everyone that's taken the time out of their lovely evenings here on the 6th of March to watch my humble show. And I want to say thank you to all my usual followers and viewers of the show, and thank you to the new ones out there and the lurkers out there that continually watch the show but never comment in the chat. However, I encourage you, today is a very special episode, so please write any of your questions in the chat, send in Rumble Rants. Perhaps we can ask our top guest today, probably one of the biggest figures I've had on my stream as of yet. We have the Paul Gottfried, legendary luminary of the right wing and the conservative movement here in the American conservative movement, and academic Paul Gottfried. I'm so excited to have him on, everyone, and I think you are as well. So thank you for tuning in. I will be having him on an hour into the stream, so at 6 p.m. I'll be bringing him in to have a interview with him live on stream, and this is going to be a bit of a longer interview. We might go up to an hour long, so I think you guys are really going to appreciate that. But beyond Paul Gottfried, we also have a lot to cover in the news as far as the right-wing movement is concerned with the United States. I know that Justice Amy Coney Barrett has already made the top headline news with her decision deeming giving foreign aid as or preventing doing so as unconstitutional. And so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about other right-wing figureheads in the movement, some questionable and some not so questionable. But one of the not so questionable, I would say, is Paul Gottfried. A questionable individual, however, which you could consider is a figurehead of the right-wing movement today, especially for young men, is Andrew Tate. So I'll be talking about him as well, and his experiences in Florida ever since he came back into the United States. So that's going to be really exciting. So we have a lot to cover. I want to jump in because we don't have much time. We're going to be having Paul Gottfried on the show, and I think you guys are really going to appreciate that. Hence the title of the show. It's called Culturama. On this show, we don't talk about just news or trending news, although that's a big chunk of the show, especially lately since we have a very hectic and active administration. So there's a lot to cover news-wise and politics-wise, but on this show, what I primarily like to focus on is culture. It's in the title, it's in the name, and that is one of my main passions and what I like to discuss. But not just like pop culture or, aesthetic culture, although we do sometimes touch on that show. I like to talk about ideological culture, the movements of ideologies, the evolution of ideologies and political belief systems, and religious belief systems sometimes even, and how that impacts politics today. and philosophies as well that continually evolve and change all throughout the political movements and the social movements that we are experiencing and the subcultures that we are experiencing here in the United States primarily. But of course, we sometimes touch on it in other parts of the world. But on Culturama, we talk about good old-fashioned American ideology, philosophy, and culture. And so that is what I want to ask my guest today, because it does touch on where the conservative movement is going, where it has been, and what we can look forward to. And, you know, I am really looking forward to that interview. And like I said, I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. But before I get to that, and before I get to the rest of the news, I want to say hello to my fans. I know I always do it. I'll try not to take too much time on saying hello to my fans, but I love my fans. I love the viewers of the show. I appreciate what you guys have to say, and I love you guys' input. So I will be seeing who is in the chat so far. I already see my usuals. We have Nomad Johnny. We have Quest Fanning. We have Grizz Cheese, Barney Styles. Hello, everyone. Hello. Fiery Waco. Very good to see you. Drew Van Runkle, I don't often see you, but they wrote hi peeps, checking in for a little bit in between hockey periods. Very good to see you, Drew. Thank you for joining the chat and joining Culturama. We have Pork Chop 159. Pork Chop, I did not see you in a little bit, so it's very good to see you again in the Culturama chat. And we have Mr. PYG, Mr. Pig. Hello, Mr. Pig. Very good to see you. Okay, LDubs78, going to be a good interview, they wrote. I do believe so as well, LDubs78. So we are looking forward to that. Thank you, everyone that has joined. We all are already hitting great viewership numbers. For those that are here for the Paul Gottfried interview, I just want to say we will be interviewing him an hour into the show. So at about the 6 p.m. mark, my time. If you are in Central, that would be 8 p.m., I believe. And then 9 p.m. if you're Eastern. So that is when we'll be having the interview. Stay tuned, though, because we will definitely be having that interview as soon as he joins that Zoom meeting that I would create. So, but before we get on to that, like I said on this stream so far, if you are new here or if you're a longtime watcher, I'll just reiterate, we talk about culture on Culturama. What else? Political culture, philosophy, and the evolution of philosophy, and ideological culture. And I am just someone that is obsessed with the changing of social trends and social cultures here in the United States. One of those that I have been covering quite a bit the last few weeks was some major institutional changes that we have been seeing ever since Trump went into office. We've seen figureheads from social media platforms like Meta platforms with Mark Zuckerberg come out wearing the chains and, talking about his wrestling experience or whatever it is that he does on Joe Rogan. He's going on more right-wing platforms. We see Jeff Bezos basically shape-shifting the Washington Post into something that it once wasn't. They're talking about personal liberty, economic freedoms, to the degree where we have writers for the publication just outright leave. We have been seeing major cultural changes and trends going towards more of the right-wing direction. And one of the main things that I also see this happening in, other than just meta platforms, is Twitch. Now, I don't know if you guys know what Twitch is. It's a streaming platform. I'm streaming on it right now. So far, no viewers. I get most of my viewers literally everywhere, anywhere else but Twitch. Twitch is, of course, has a left-wing audience, and that's quite understandable why they would want to watch Culturama. Although I once in a while do have my occasional commenter from there. But Twitch has been, I guess essentially you could say, deplatforming some of their top streamers. And we've seen that happen with Hassan Piker, a longtime leftist streamer. And we have just seen it happen yet again with Ethan Klein, H3H3, and I want to cover that with you guys first. Okay, so let's talk about that. Before I do that, though, I have $1 from Quest Fanning. Quest Fanning, thank you so much. You wrote, the silent majority isn't being silenced anymore, thumbs up. Exactly, Quest Fanning. They are coming back with a vengeance. The right wing, the conservative movement has been taking a lot of W's, and I do find it troublesome that there is some of that disaffected contingent that says that or I don't know if disaffected is the right term, perhaps the more disenfranchised contingent that doesn't want to count any W's whatsoever. But we are making major institutional shifts. It's not all going to happen overnight. Trump is certainly trying to do that with the number of executive orders that he's being passed, but it's not going to happen overnight, okay? It is a gradual process, but we are reclaiming the occupied institutions that we have lost for so long. And we are reclaiming the cultural conversations that we can have, or the ones that we couldn't have for a long time, whether it be on social media or in person. This, I think, was first occurred when Elon Musk had taken over X, formerly Twitter. And we are going to be seeing that in other platforms as well, one of which we have seen happen in Twitch, and that's what I want to cover right now. So let me go to the second screen here. Ethan Klein, I don't know if you guys know who he is. He is a long-time YouTuber, streamer, and he is a bit more, left-leaning, you could say. But he had covered Hassan on his stream here, and it looks like that he was removed just temporarily.
When I seen
for a week, but let's watch. This is
Hassan.
This is his reaction being deplatformed. Let's take a listen.
Talking about it, zero mention of the Israeli partner. And when he I'm not saying, I don't know what happened, but he interviewed the Palestinian guy, and the Israeli wasn't on the call. They raised a bunch of money.
What was that call? They were there in person.
They were there where in person?
At Hassan's house.
So the Palestinian director showed up at his house?
Correct.
Anyone else was with him?
There were. I to be frank, I haven't watched it. I just saw that he had him on the day before. So
yeah, there was a couple of guys in there in the room.
It could be the Israeli guy was like, "Fuck Hassan, I'm not going there." But I doubt I think if he had a problem with Hassan, the other guy probably wouldn't have gone either. If they're like homies.
For those that don't know the whole, a lot of you guys won't know the situation. Hassan and H3H3 is this individual we're watching now, who is, by the way, Jewish, have had a bit of a rivalry ever since the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And following that conflict, they used to rub shoulders together, stream together, and they were pretty much like the embodiment of the two top left-wing voices on major streaming platforms for quite a long time. They have captured the minds of the youth for a long time, and you could even say that thanks to people like Hassan Piker were useful in radicalizing the youth to a degree towards the left wing. And they have free speech just like anyone else, but it goes without saying that it's undeniable that people like this have completely captured major streaming platforms for a long time. Right-wingers, conservatives, even though we have the punditry class right now within the conservative movement, I can't deny I'm one of them, although I'm very small. I'm not, Candace Owens or anything on that level. But conservatives did find a way to kind of branch out on their own, carve out their own identity on alternative platforms like Rumble and so forth, and creating their own podcasts, their own streams. But it's been very difficult to contend with people like H3H3, Hassan, Bosch, Destiny. These are all big names that have completely ideologically occupied these platforms. And so the other day, although Hassan Piker was only, I think, pushed off and people said banned, he was essentially suspended off Twitch for just a day. Hassan was H3H3, this man right here, had just reacted to Hassan, and he got removed from Twitch or suspended for a week. Okay? For some reason, Twitch is taking it a little bit more seriously, and they're following through with their policy platforms. And I want to ask the audience this: why do you think that is? Is it perhaps because Twitch is trying to go along with the ideological current and the cultural current that we're seeing? Okay, especially now that we're seeing the disaffected tech right and people from Silicon Valley and they like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Mark Idrisian, Peter Thiel, people like this, obviously turning towards a certain angle, a certain part of the ideological spectrum, and facing where their supposed legacy can go and where they can sustain themselves and remain relevant, because that's where the culture is heading. And is it because the people that run these other platforms like Twitch or like YouTube and so forth are trying to, maybe not happily or begrudgingly, they are following that trend? And so now we're finally seeing Twitch, after all this time, put down the hammer and follow through with their policies. Or is it because they're just trying to gain relevancy with the public? I don't know. There's many other opinions out there. I've heard the opinion being thrown out that Hassan Piker was because he told them to take the life, or he encouraged his audience. He encouraged the idea where his audience could take the life of a senator, Rick Scott, I believe it was. And they don't want any more Luigi impersonators out there. Maybe that's the case. Maybe Twitch is just being extra careful. But whatever the case, is that we have been waiting for this to happen for a long time. Okay? Finally, we are seeing platforms take it seriously. I don't believe Mark Zuckerberg is a changed person. I don't think Jeff Bezos is a changed person. I don't really care. Elon Musk, he's always been autistic. That's just Elon Musk. Whatever you think of him, that's what he's always going to be. But I don't think all of these are good actors or positive actors. They're just embodying the institutions that we are capturing and changing, all of us together. But through our voting, through our social change and our capture of the conversations that we're having on social media platforms like X, maybe like even Facebook, and other platforms. I don't know if you guys see the comment section on Instagram recently, but that's definitely been captured as well. But we are certainly changing the shift and the narrative, or we're directing the shift towards a narrative that is actually aligned with our perspectives for the most part. Of course, you're going to have some crazies out there, but yes, I will answer you, Entropy Nomad, in the chat. It is $70 to Unleash the Beast today. We have reached $25 already. Did I miss a donation? Oh, you gifted 5 subscriptions. My goodness, Entropy Nomad. Entropy Nomad, you have gifted the chat 5 subscriptions or to Culturama here. Thank you so much. That is so generous of you. And that is indeed $25. Yes, we are $25 closer to the Unleash the Beast goal. For those that don't know what the Unleash the Beast goal is, let me quickly change the window for you so I can show you here accurately. But for those that don't know what Unleash the Beast is, my audience has this thing where Monster Kill. $70. I have a $70 threshold. If we reach $70 in donations and Rumble rants or gifted subs, I do bring out my dog on stream. Now, I will be honest with you guys. I don't know if I'll do that for Paul during the Paul interview. I will not be doing that during the interview, but if we manage to get to $70 before the interview, I can bring him out. But yes, that is the Unleash the Beast. Monster Kill. Thank you, everyone. Or, you know, if you do it beforehand, I will also bring Leo out after the interview briefly. But I cannot have the interview, or I can have the show go on longer than 2 hours because we have the Liberty Tonight show streaming after mine on Rumble and on other major media or streaming platforms. So you can watch them there. As usual, I throw in the link in the chat. If you guys like Culturama, also watch me this Saturday. I will be doing another gaming stream. I will be proceeding with Cuphead. So if you guys have nothing else to do this Saturday evening, watch me on here. I will be gaming. Anyways, I will be right back. I'll be in a quick commercial break, everyone. I'm going to be bringing up the next couple stories here. Before we have on Paul Gottfried, we have... I want to cover the Andrew Tate story. So everyone hang tight, and I will be pulling that up here. And I'll be back shortly.
Well, here comes Sandy yelling like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the waves. Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have "Glad you came out" and "I'm so happy that you're queer" in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
All right, everyone, we are back on Culturama. Thank you for viewing this lovely stream here today. We have 30 more minutes, everyone, until we have our special guest on today. I do want to reiterate here, if you want me to ask him a specific question, donate a Rumble Rant right now. I will be sure to write it down and bring it on the interview, so I'll be able to ask him that question. But do it within the next 30 minutes, because I will be bringing on Paul Gottfried here in the next 30 minutes. So if you have any questions, donate a Rumble Rant and we will get that going. Okay. Also, another thing, if you have some downtime, go to the ap4libertyshop.com to get yourself some lovely Culturama products if you're a longtime fan of the show. Especially get our coffee. We are already selling the Atomic Blonde coffee through the shoot here, and we have sold multiple bags of coffee now, and it is still counting, and it's delicious. It is from Costa Rica, I believe. Very lovely coffee beans. Once again, that is the Atomic Blonde coffee from the Culturama shop, found on ap4libertyshop.com. I'll be putting an ad up on that shortly afterwards, but I'm drinking the coffee right now, and that's how I can do this show. It is solely running the show. It's very delicious. It can be enjoyed hot or over ice. So, get yourself a bag today. But proceeding with the news, I did mention that I wanted to cover Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, if you guys weren't following, is a longtime figurehead within the right-wing movement, particularly the New Right. He is especially popular amongst young men. I don't really have to explain to you guys who Andrew Tate is, but because a travel ban restriction was lifted, he immediately flew to the United States, to Florida. And DeSantis specifically is not too keen on having Andrew Tate in his state. And so I wanted to kind of read a little bit about why that is, okay? So Let me pull up the news stories here so we can quickly cover this. Here we are. Andrew Tate taunts Governor DeSantoid after Florida launches criminal investigation, quote, arrest me. So, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is taking on Andrew Tate. The state attorney general has launched a criminal investigation on the manfluencer, as this article states, interesting enough, as well as his brother Tristan. For those that don't remember, just a quick refresher, they are charged with human trafficking and also the assault and potential rape of a minor. I can't believe I'm saying that word. I don't want to say the actual one on the stream, but don't want to get shadow banned like I most often do, especially on X. However, they have pretty serious charges, and they decided to go fly back into the state where one of his victims is actually from. Regardless, let's continue. The announcement led Tate to brag that investigators will not be able to convict him because he deletes all the data off his electronics, outright saying that he could even have evidence, but it gets deleted. Okay, this is what he said on Candace Owens' show. He wrote, come get you. Why, as I read this, you guys tell me if it sounds like an Andrew Tate's voice. Come get me, arrest me, perp walk me, put me on the news, he angrily said during an interview with Candace Owens posted on Wednesday afternoon. This was yesterday. Tell everyone I'm a human trafficker. And there he is. He always looks very particular. An angry and fiery Tate spoke out with Candace Owens. You think I'm not ready? He continued. Effing come get me. Raid my house, take my stuff. You think I sleep with a phone full of evidence? You don't think I wipe my phone every night? You think I'm dumb? So, again, he's outright saying, like, that he does have evidence, but he's just deleting it. So, I will say, he is kind of a ballsy guy. Not much can be said there. Very interesting and comedic as well. Tate, 38, also told Owens that Florida authorities seized his electronics as they investigate him for unspecified wrongdoing. I think we all know what kind of wrongdoing that he's being investigated for, and that he's innocent of any crime. So, of course, he followed up with saying that he's actually innocent. Tate claimed that DeSantis and Attorney General James Othmeyer are targeting him because they're afraid of him. They fear me so heavily, he told Owens. They fear me because of my political influence. I can galvanize a masculine youth in any direction that I believe fit. He also speculated that DeSantis, in particular, was concerned that Tate would oppose the upcoming candidacy of his wife, Casey, who is rumored to be eyeing for run for governor. And this is, once again, another reason why perhaps DeSantis is a bit concerned with Tate being in the state, because it is true that Tate is sort of a galvanizing, mobilizing force. I wouldn't say he's as mobilizing as someone like Trump, but, you know, he does animate parts of the young right wing, particularly young men. To the degree with how influential he is, I couldn't say. I do think my personal belief, and this is going to be a bit of a conspiracy, but my personal belief is that he perhaps is a bit of a change agent. I think that he is sort of like a walking psyop to perhaps radicalize or shift the narrative, specifically with conservatism and the right wing, about how we should actually look at these young men and these influencers and make them. To summarize, I sort of see how I see Nick Fuentes is that I think there's more going on there that meets the eye. I don't think they're just an organic influencer. I think there's more artificial growth behind it to shape the narrative into what we see it today, is sort of like joking about young men within the right. But I could just be paranoid regardless. Andrew Tate is still very popular, mobilizing, and it's no doubt that young men still find him appealing, regardless of whether he's artificially grown, organically, or he's a change agent or whatnot. A source in the DeSantis office tells the Post that the governor is unmoved by Tate's taunts, okay? If Andrew Tate believes the governor has some sort of personal fear or vendetta against him, he's delusional, says the high-level source. The governor doesn't give a damn about his supposed influence. The Attorney General launched a criminal investigation into the widely condemned conservative influencer and brother Tristan on Tuesday, announcing on Tuesday that he sought subpoenas and search warrants in the brothers' case. Okay, so I don't know what's going to happen with the Tate situation. Very interesting to see how this turns out. I don't know why they're still staying in Florida. I don't know why they have, we even went to Florida. I do understand that Tate used to live there, I do believe. But still, I mean, like I said, one of his victims is from Florida. Probably not the best place to go back to. Here's another article summarizing this. Andrew Tate charged with grape and trafficking in Romania. He returns to the U.S. Okay, here's a video for those that didn't see. I believe
in our lives ever.
Romanian officials today, Andrew Tate landing in Florida today by private jet, setting off a swirl of questions about why Romanian officials permitted he and his brother Tristan to leave the country where they're facing sex trafficking charges.
I think my brother and I are largely misunderstood. We've yet to be convicted of any crime in our lives ever.
Romanian officials today confirming travel restrictions preventing the brothers from leaving were lifted, but the case against them remains ongoing. They deny any wrongdoing. Andrew Tate, a self-proclaimed misogynist with millions of online followers, also charged with rape by Romanian prosecutors and faces civil suits for sex abuse in the UK. Tate, a vocal Trump supporter, forecast his release 2 weeks ago, posting, "The Tates will be free. Trump is the president. The good old days are back." When asked by reporters today, the president denied any role in their release.
Trump's not going to claim any of this business, you guys. He doesn't want any part of it. Isn't Tate a Muslim, asks Nelson65. Yes, Nelson65. He is a Muslim convert. I don't remember exactly when he converted to Islam. I don't think he was raised Muslim. I could be wrong there, but I do know that he did convert to Islam more recently, perhaps a few years ago, which is interesting that, he is Muslim, and I do see a lot of right-wing Christian young men take interest in him and follow him and even give him money sometimes. So it's a very interesting state of affairs that we're in. It's almost like, and I spoke about this on Austin Peterson's morning show today, the conservative movement is in a state of a flux right now. And there's a lot of contending beliefs in the movement about, how we engage, not just politically, but also religiously, because religion is becoming a very foundational element. It used to be a foundational element, and it is becoming a foundational element within the right-wing movement, whether that be the old right-wing movement or the new right-wing movement, which we will talk about with our interview guest here in a little bit. I see that we have $20 from Bucks Nasty. Thank you so much, Bucks Nasty. You are a treasure. Thank you for your $20. And I see all you wrote simply was monster kill.
Monster kill.
I believe that means we are $46 towards the 70 to unleash the beast.
Monster kill.
That's our screening from the chambers, everybody. For the purpose of the interview, I will not be pulling him out during the interview or right before it, but if we get in at $70, yes, enter Pinot at 46. If we get in the remainder of the $70, I'll get him on shortly before or right after the interview. The interview will be a bit longer today, so stay tuned if you do want to see Leo and you donated, especially you, Bucks Nasty, because I want to make sure you get to see my dog. So let's finish this video here.
I just know nothing about it. We'll check it out.
The State Department declining to comment. A lawyer for the Tates wouldn't comment on whether or not State or the White House was involved. But several Republicans, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, voiced concern.
Florida is not a place where you're welcome with that type of conduct. We were not involved. We were not notified.
Meanwhile, an attorney for an American woman who says she was lured from Florida to Romania for sex trafficking and now faces a defamation lawsuit.
There was a victim that was lured to Romania, so... And he from Florida, and he went back to Florida. Interesting stuff. We'll just have to wait and see. It's crazy that he did end up going on Candace Owens' show and saying whatever that it is that he said, saying that he essentially has evidence, because that's basically the outcome of what he's saying, right? He says he continually deletes data from his phone. What does it sound like to you? It sounds like he had evidence, but regardless. Fiery Waco, yes, it is a celebration of dysgenics.
Monster kill.
Also, in other news, and this is what I really wanted to cover here and get your guys' take on this, Amy Coney Barrett voted against Trump. And I simply just quote tweeted this. This Twitter user said, "No, Amy Coney Barrett didn't become woke. The president just happens to be a wannabe dictator, and she did her job pretty simple." This is obviously from an account that we don't support here, right? But I quote tweeted this tweet, and I just quote tweeted with this picture. For those that don't know the reference, let me just tell you, this is essentially what we are experiencing and what we have been experiencing today and in the last 15 to 20 years in the United States and in much of the greater Western world. And we are being longhoused, and we have been longhoused. And I know a lot of people are saying, and they have said in the comments here, that it's, just because she's a woman, she's being long. I see someone in the comments saying that as well. Well, she's a woman, the fairy Waco. She's not woke, she's female. Listen, are women more inclined to longhouse? Yes. Women are the primary movers of what the longhouse is. And if you don't know what the longhouse is, it's about time you find out if you watch my show, because I talk about it inadvertently all the time. But I will just say this. Listen, there are some good ones out there. There are females out there that don't like to longhouse, myself included. I feel like I get longhoused by society every single day. There's things you can't say. There's things you can't do publicly. And it's getting kind of irritating. And so this is why I'm passionate about having this streaming show, because we can actually, at least I try to talk about topics that I think are very pertinent and reasonable to talk about if we want to reclaim culture. Here's an article. Supreme Court denies Trump request to block $2 billion foreign aid payment. Okay, all thanks to the justices that were supposed to have Trump's back, but they didn't. Okay, a divided Supreme Court on Wednesday, yesterday, turned down a request by the Trump administration to lift an order by a federal judge in Washington, D.C. that had directed the State Department and the U.S. Agency for International Development to pay nearly $2 billion in foreign aid reimbursements for work that has already been done. They're saying it's unconstitutional to do so because the work has already been done, and so therefore they have to pay it forward anyway. Okay, in a brief unsigned opinion, the court noted that the February 26th deadline for the government to make payments has already passed. It instructed U.S. District Judge Amir Ali to clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the temporary restraining order that Ali has entered into the case, paying attention to how feasible it is for the government to comply with those timelines, okay? The brief unsigned order came 6 days after Justice John Roberts temporarily paused Ali's February 25 order, which had ordered that agencies to pay contractors and grant recipients by 11:59 p.m. on February 26th for work that has already been done, before he issued a February 13th temporary restraining order that had prohibited the State Department and USAID from suspending foreign aid payments. So, in an executive order last month, President Donald Trump ordered a halt to the distribution of foreign aid funds so that federal agencies can ensure that those funds are only dispersed in ways that are fully aligned with Trump's foreign policy. Following that order, Secretary of State Marco Rubio ordered a freeze on all foreign aid programs funded by the State Department and USAID. Okay, so this is a kind of a lengthy article. But essentially, I'm just going to give you guys the Cliff Notes version. Justice Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett were the people that are supposedly on our side of the aisle. And again, I don't want to suggest that they're supposed to be activist judges like the other side does all the time. I understand you can't fight fire with fire, principally speaking. So ideally, I don't want to promote that view. But at the same time, we have had issues with Amy Coney Barrett for quite a while, especially the last few months, since she had become Supreme Court Justice. Divided Supreme Court rejects Trump administration's foreign aid freeze. So the whole talk about not sending any more money to foreigners is now being blocked. We have to pay out. Once again, I want to highlight this number. I want to make sure I got it. $2 billion. $2 billion. We're not in the millions. We've reached the billions. Okay. This person wrote, "I have never seen a dissent like this. Justice Alito says he is stunned that 5 justices of the Supreme Court are giving a single district court judge, quote, unchecked power, when he likely lacks jurisdiction to force a $2 billion non-refundable payment at a complete loss to taxpayers. Okay, this is going to be a major black hole in out of our pockets, out of the American citizenry. Once again, to do something that the Trump administration, and the reason why I want to reiterate why Trump was voted in not to do, is to give our money to these programs that frankly isn't beneficial to us, and in some cases isn't even beneficial to the foreign lands that they're being distributed towards. Very unfortunate. I hear this document says unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion taxpayer dollars. I am stunned, writes Justice Alito. What is this? Oh, and this video, last one. People have been floating this video around. I've heard different opinions about what exactly is going on here. I personally thought it looked like he didn't shake her hand, and that's why she's looking at him. This is a video of Amy Coney Barrett looking very disgusted at Trump. She's looking at Trump and looking disgusted. I don't know if that's what's happening here. I've heard other people say she's looking at somebody else. Maybe it's the case. I don't know. But it does look like she's looking at Trump, and she looks rather PO'd here. There's no sound in this video, but it looks like she's looking at Trump. And then she looks away, and she looks rather mad there. Obviously, she's like trying to keep it together, but like I do, she has a rather transparent face. So, I thought it looked like because he didn't shake her hand, and that's why she reacted that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did shake her hand. I don't know. If you guys have any other explanations as to why this could be, as to why she's looking at him this way, I would love to find out what you guys think about that. But to go back to my tweet about the Longhouse once again, and for those that don't know what the Longhouse is, at this point you should know, but essentially what it means, if I could give a very quick summary of what it means. Longhouse is like a modern day explanation for what we have been socially experiencing, where culturally dominating institutions like academia, even large private entities in the job market are getting now completely DEIification is a big part of it. It's where they're trying to bring minorities into positions where they don't necessarily belong without merit, but it is basically capturing these institutions to the point where it is being essentially dominated by the minority. In this case, we're talking about women. It very much is referred to the female class, the female professional class, taking over these major institutions and preventing what the general idea is, preventing young men or men in general from occupying and directing these institutions in directions in which they should really do. I write about this quite frequently on my Substack personally, and I'll say it here. I think the academic institution is dangerously longhoused, because we can't have, any, first of all, effective research, any discovery, any conflict in a way that espouses general discovery of new ideas, new concepts. And it's so imbued with critical theory. And the Longhouse is basically this like this historical, it's like this indigenous people build all the time. It's like this building, this long building here. I think they're also inhabited by everyone of that village or that tribe, particularly during winter, to stay warm. And a lot of contemporary philosophers write this about how like the den mother basically motivates the tribe and the people of that tribe to maintain a cultural custom, sometimes to the detriment of that tribe, for longevity or discovery, or or especially men who are very directed towards discovering new lands, creating new institutions, and creating society beyond what it is. It's an extension of what it is. Whereas women are very meticulous and they want to keep things at bay. And so what women will do typically, but this isn't just a woman thing, but what women typically will do, will try to control behaviors that they find socially that could perhaps unwind or undo the social fabric of contemporary society. And women don't like that. They like to control aspects of society and administer aspects of society in a way in which we can maintain. That's why women are naturally very conservative, and I've talked about that on my show before. Men are actually naturally progressive. I don't mean in the way progressive that we mean today. I mean men are naturally, they want to project themselves onto the world and to create and recreate societies that we haven't had before. Do I think all men and women are exactly black and white this way? No, I think there's definitely exceptions to the rule. There's a lot of men, especially today, that longhouse other men and other women, may I say. Okay, I've been longhoused by men. I call it the longhouse, personally. I think that sounds interesting, and I've actually written about that. But that's what the longhouse is, for those that don't know what it is. And that's why that tweet got so popular the way it did when I retweeted it with that picture. But you guys can make fun of women all you want and call us longhousers all you want. I will say this. Our president, however, proclaims that today's month, March, all of month, is Women's History Month. You could call it Longhouse Month if you want. But the president loves women, so you can make fun of us women all day long if you want. But our president, this is my president, okay? My president declares that March is Women's History Month, everybody. And if you can't get along with that, then I just don't think you support Trump. Also, thank you, Springer, for the gifted sub. Once again, very generous of you. Thank you so much. We are getting closer to the Leo Unleash the Beast goal. Let me play this video for you guys.
A lot. So 2 very special proclamations, the first of which is a proclamation that proclaims March 2025 as Women's History Month in honor of all the wonderful women in your administration, all the wonderful women in America, and in honor of everything you've done for women and this administration has done for women in just, what, a month and a half? So.
Yeah, we've done a lot. And women have done a lot for us, right? This is an honor. We have a wonderful woman here, Maria Bartiromo.
Thank you so much.
Nice to have you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thanks for all that you're doing for women.
Thank you. She's going to do an interview of me later. Maybe I shouldn't do this interview. I should be like Biden, not do any interviews. That's great. Women, we love you.
Women, we love you.
Too, sir.
And she said, we love you too, sir. So, you guys, it is officially Women's History Month. May I remind you, he did, federally, we're not recognizing other minority months like Indigenous History Month or Black History Month, but we are recognizing Women's History Month. Also, $10 from Nelson65. Thank you, Nelson65. $10. All he wrote was Unleash the Beast.
Monster kill.
$61. Thank you for the count, Entropy Nomad. I really do need to get like a live counter meter here. I haven't figured out how to do that, but I really need to. But we're at $61, everyone. However, if you do want to unleash the beast, we're going to be doing it after the interview if we get $9 more. So I will be right back, everyone. I'm going to pull in my guest, and please stay tuned.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Culturama, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah. Who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben and Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Radioactive Exclusion Zone. And I have with me today the very own legendary right-wing luminary, Paul Gottfried. I want to thank everyone that has joined the stream to watch this wonderful interview. Paul, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, you seem to be very optimistic. You assume that this will be a wonderful interview. It may in fact be a dud, but let's hope not.
I have no doubt you have a lot of wisdom to give us here in the stream today. But I understand that you are a prolific writer and you have had a lot of opinions on the conservative movement. So I wanted to sort of ask you questions about that. And I first wanted to jump in and ask you this very pertinent question. And that is how you feel about the present rightward shift that we are seeing with the youth today. I know this hasn't been a common pattern, up until recently with the Trump movement, but there was, I believe I have written down here, 19 points shift towards the right wing for the ages or the demographic of 18 to 29. Is this like completely new, or do you have any explanation as to why this is happening?
Yeah, I think what is happening in the United States now, which is the development of what I describe as the working class right. It's a populist working class right which bears very little resemblance, by the way, to the right in the 1930s or 1940s, except in the sense that both of them were generally opposed to foreign wars, and have been accused of isolationism, which I think is a charge now being made against Trump. But this right is new in the sense that it is a working class right, which has developed parallel rights. You find parallel rights in Europe, in England, France, Germany, right across Western and Central Europe, and in all of these places, the right is a working class movement. The left is a woke movement, woke globalist movement that includes financial elites and immigrants who are being brought into the country deliberately, actually, to shore up the left. But the left has less and less to do with the working class, which was the traditional base of the Marxist, the Socialist, the Democratic Party in the United States, and so forth, the labor unions. These people are now on the right. So this is not it's something I've written about in books, but it is not something that one would have, let's say, anticipated around 1980. Then I would have assumed that the people who are against big government and generally against the welfare state were on the right. And the people who favored a larger welfare state, more social programs for the poor, for the working class, and so forth, would be on the left. I think this has changed, and it's very hard not to notice this sort of cataclysmic transformation of the political spectrum.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I'd also want to, and I want to ask your opinion on this. I also noticed that with the Trump movement, what seemed to really revitalize Americans everywhere, but also the youth, is the conversation about immigration. And it seems like we haven't been comfortable enough for a long time in this country to have that conversation. That was like the defining aspect of his platform. And would you say that also played a major part in motivating people to get involved more politically, especially the youth as well?
Very definitely. It might also account for the fact that you have something like 22% of the black voters, something like that, is going to Trump, because blacks are in a very precarious part of the economy. Very often, they have low-paying jobs. They're not college. Most of them are not college educated. In fact, most whites are not college educated, and they do not like immigration. Immigration of people, of uneducated masses of people who are going to take their jobs. But I think the concern with immigration is also cultural, particularly in Europe, because it's basically a European Christian population that is now overwhelmed by third world Muslims. So immigration, legal as well as illegal immigration in Europe, is a very big issue, and it is one that definitely drives the increased acceptability and popularity of the populist right.
And I also wanted to ask you this. You talked about the old right quite frequently in the past. I wanted you just to define for my audience here today, what do you mean by the old right as you referred to in the past, and what is its significance today?
Right. It probably has very little significance today, although as a historian I write about it. But when I talk about the old right, I'm talking about the right that existed as a resistance to the New Deal, to Franklin Roosevelt, the growth of the modern managerial state, on which I've written books, and which generally opposes foreign wars and foreign entanglements. And this right develops in the interwar period, the 1920s, 1930s, particularly in the 1930s, as a reaction to the Roosevelt administration. This old right is going to be replaced in the 1950s by what becomes the Cold War right, remember, led by William F. Buckley, and one might say culminating in the presidency of Ronald Reagan. And that right was organized around anti-communism, preserving the American way of life against communism, And that right took a very strong position militarily and in foreign policy against the communist threat. That right also generally spoke about capitalism, the free market. Moral questions were not all that important since there wasn't that much difference between the Democratic and Republican parties on social moral issues at the time. As I've argued, probably the Democratic Party was slightly to the right because of its ethnic Catholic and Southern Protestant, white Protestant base. But there wasn't much difference. But the anti-communism was the defining issue for the American conservative movement all the way down to the end of the Cold War. And what we're seeing now is a right which pretty much accepts the existence of the welfare state. I mean, that this is not even an issue anymore. You know, you have entitlements and so forth. All of this is now accepted. The New Deal, much of the Great Society programs of the 1960s, because this right has a working class base. It is conservative on social issues, like it fights back against wokeness, right? The transgender lobby, the feminism, and so it is socially conservative. It is economically liberal by the standards of the 1960s, and it is very much concerned with illegal immigration. Although some of the people in the Trump coalition are probably unhappy with legal immigration as well, but you know that is an issue which has been suppressed until now because you know they want the legal immigrants to vote for them. And the interesting thing is that it also seems to be picking up a lot of Hispanic votes, which is unusual. Yeah. So it is again the working class populist appeal and the appeal to family morality, which I think explains the receptiveness of Hispanic voters, increasing receptiveness to the Trump's form of populism.
Oh, no, yeah, most definitely. I don't know if you're aware of this, Paul, but a couple months ago, there has been a major conversation, at least online, especially on Twitter, about the H-1B visa program. And since we're talking about immigration as being one of the features of this, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there was a big argument online about whether or not we should even allow this program to occur. And you could say there was like almost a faction happening between people within the right wing saying that, you know, we should still maintain this program, and others were saying that we shouldn't have this program at all and it's taking jobs away from Americans. Do you think that the H-1B visa program is going to be another like major question in this?
Yeah, I don't think it is right now because I think Trump, the Trump mystique is so pervasive on the right that, you know, what did he make one remark, you know, that I can, somebody, you know, I can shoot somebody and my followers will still fight or something like that. I think Trump did in his first term. But he is enormously popular with his base. But I do think there is, in fact, a real cleavage there between people who are generally against immigration, you know, and those people who are just against illegal immigration. But I do think that, you know, if you sort of peel away the onion skins and so forth, you find that there are a lot of people, you know, who are allied with Trump, who are simply against more immigration, and they're not particularly happy with, you know, Indian technicians coming over to the United States and taking jobs that Americans would take for a little more money, would be given for little more money. And I don't think, you know, these people probably don't like Vivek Ramaswamy. Right, yeah. I would guess. You know, and I do think there is that division, but you know, so far it's been covered over, and I could see this among the traditional right, paleo-conservative friends of mine were very upset, you know, with this. They're not particularly happy with this sort of gold card citizenship for people who, you know, pay $5 million or something like that, because this will simply increase the cultural confusion, the immigrating, even if these are wealthy people, they don't want that. So I think there's a real revulsion for immigration that you find among some in the Trump camp.
No, absolutely, and that seems to be, I think, like, I think you're right. It will take some time until we make any changes on the H-1B visa program specifically. But I did see a lot of this sentiment being shared among Americans, particularly saying like we are not an economic zone, we are actually a nation with our nation's people in it, and there seems to be that revitalization of that national identity, and nationalism is a very large defining feature of the conservative movement, particularly among the youth. It seems like as well, more so than it seems to have been in recent history, at least. But we did talk about quite a bit about populism and how this has been increasing in popularity here, and I talk about this quite a bit on my show. I talk about the conservative movement on this show, as well as I write about it outside of this show as well, because I am really interested to see the evolution of this. One very loud but yet small contingent has been the new tech right, and I don't know how familiar you are with them, but the MAGA Trump populist movement has been successful. I'm sure they did have major donors as well, and but it was a very much like this grassroots movement in a lot of ways, which did gain so much in greater popularity. But we do see now this contingent in the new tech right, where we have people like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Adresian, and so forth, even Curtis Yarvin in some aspects, if you're familiar with him. But they are now, even in some cases like Jeff Bezos, changing the direction of the Washington Post, or Mark Zuckerberg as well, going on platforms like Joe Rogan, where they are sort of going into like this right-wing cultural tide. I wanted to ask you, is this going to be a major facet of where conservatism is going, or is it temporary, or is it something that we should take seriously?
Yeah, I think, again, what you have is a coalition, aggregation of groups that were disgruntled or unhappy with the Biden administration and generally with the left. But they're not all the same. And I think again, this could be a source of future conflict between this tech elite, which is not socially conservative. I mean, some who are gay, who are part of this. You have others who have many children out of wedlock, which is true of Elon Musk. So these are not exactly exemplars of Christian conservative virtue. But at the same time, they seem to coexist with those who emphasize Christian conservative virtue. And this, I think, is simply the nature of coalitions. I mean, you sometimes get groups that are very different, but that unite because there's a shared enemy, or they may have shared goals, or there's a shared leader in this case. I mean, there's no way that one can exclude the cultic presence of Donald Trump in understanding this movement, right? And I think most populist movements that succeed do have this leadership principle. Whether one likes it or not, it's there. You don't get populist movements with just in which you have you play moving chairs with the leadership and so forth. I think, by the way, this is one of the problems of the AfD, the Alternative für Deutschland in Germany, that they really don't have this kind. Of course, they're afraid in Germany because they had Hitler at one time. So the idea of this leader principle does not really go well in that country. But in a populist movement, you do need a leader like the Le Pen family, Jean Le Pen, the Rassemblement National in France. That works, and I think Trump serves that function in the United States. He's the leader of a populist movement. But I would agree with you, there are contradictions. There are social, moral, cultural contradictions within that movement.
How you did mention, since we're talking about social conservatism, and the relation to it and religion here, but we are seeing like this new reinvigoration of like Christian nationalism and Christian virtue within the social conversation and the social aspect of it. It is interesting to point that out because like the new tech right, it is trying to make headway into the movement, but you're right, it doesn't make sense as far as this new reinvigorated aspect of Christianity is concerned with conservatism. And I've talked about this earlier today on a different show, but What do we make of these different factions? I mean, does this seem really long term to you at all? Or I know we're all centered on a certain issue and a leader, but do you think that this, for instance, the influence of the new tech right is going to fizzle out? But if it does, how will that impact? Because they are a major donor base. That's the thing, is that they do have the money to finance these operations. So what will happen? Do you think that their small presence, but yet very financially beneficial presence, will change the course and direction of where like social morality and social conservatism is concerned, and where the Christian conservatism is concerned? Do you think they will affect it, or do you think they will be kind of like pushed out eventually because of those viewpoints?
No, I think the Christian elements will be the foot soldiers. They're not going to take over. I mean, I've been observing the American right and writing on this. I wasn't around all the time, but since the 1950s on, you always have a Christian element. You always have people talking about the Bible, so forth. More often about the Catholic Church, the kind of conversions to Catholicism, which you typically see with these waves of conservatism. But those don't really influence, the way things are. Because the people at the top, and right now, who probably remain there, are the donor base, well, very important, right? And then using the high tech elite, which is also going to stay there, and they're at the top, But you have to appeal to some kind of Christian people will make a big. Trump said that God intervened to save him. He may in fact believe this, but there's no reason to assume that the tech elite believes this. And they're very much in charge. And you can't help noticing, you have gays among them like Peter Thiel and Essent and so they married, partners and so forth. You have to ask, really, how Christian is this? Trump says he's quite happy with gay marriage and so forth. And of course, for most of his life, he was on the left on these social issues. So I think we have every reason to be skeptical, about the importance of this, at least for the people at the top. But the mass of followers, I live in a small borough in Pennsylvania, the mass of his followers go to church, read the Bible, and so forth, and believe that Trump is a good Christian.
It'll be really interesting to see how this will all play out. But I think you're correct to assume that they would largely be like the foot soldiers in this project. So that would be really interesting to see how that all occurs. But we're seeing it happen in real time anyway. But I did also want to ask you this. What do you think of the MAGA movement after Trump? Now, this is a major topic of debate among conservatives today, and there's a lot of speculation. I know people have thrown out the name J.D. Vance out there, but even J.D. Vance himself said that he isn't sure. He still needs to follow through in this term. Donald Trump hasn't reiterated that all that strongly. We still have to wait and see, is what he says. But the mantle of Trump, because this is his last term, and the movement will not be defined by Trump necessarily anymore. I mean, after this term, what should we expect from the Trump movement? And I mean, I'm rattling my brain over this, but do you think it will be espoused onto a single person? So they're trying to find a new, like, charismatic leader to follow, or is it just now a major, broader ideological offshoot of the conservative movement? But what do you think will occur there?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised the presence of Vance. I'm not sure that Trump, from what he said, is really sold on Vance as a successor. But in many ways, of course, Vance is a suitable successor, and he does represent, even though he was a Protestant and became a Catholic, and most of the foot soldiers are Protestant, but he does in fact sound very much like them. And he's a kind of true believing Christian populist in a way that Trump is not, and so he would be very, very acceptable to the base. Whether he would be acceptable to the high tech elite to which you refer and the donor base, that's another question. And there may not be the same degree of compatibility there.
I have heard that J.D. Vance did sort of rub shoulders with the new tech right, so that could be a possibility. But Yeah, I really do wonder. I do believe, and this is what I've heard people say, is that the mantle will be sort of on him. Do you think that the Trump MAGA, well, it is called the Trump movement, so it is largely based on Trump, right? Or this the MAGA movement more so, or this populist movement surrounding Trump. Do you think that we need a leader to, or a successor, so to speak, to have the sentiments of the movement proceed forward? Or do you think it could survive without this singular leader to move it forward?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Populism depends very much on leader. No, I mean, the comparisons to fascism I find interesting. I'm an historian of fascism. I wrote an important work on fascism. And we're not talking less about Hitlerism, but, I'm thinking of sort of Latin fascist movements like Mussolini. They always depend on leaders. Mm-hmm. And it's true of populist movements as well. And, without the leader principle, they are deprived of an essential aspect, of their existence. I think that Vance is much more articulate than Trump. I would much rather listen to him. I find him much more congenial than Trump, who is staccato syntax and mangled sentences don't please me at all. I do not like listening to Trump. I wish he would think more carefully before he spoke. Sometimes said very stupid things. Vance is an extremely thoughtful speaker. He's articulate, thoughtful. Is exactly the kind of leader I would want. But the question is, would Trump's followers relate to him? And that I don't know, because all the things that I find off-putting about Trump, his followers may well like very much. They like the way he speaks, they may like the way he gratuitously insults people he doesn't like, things I wish he would not be doing. But his followers seem to just go wild when he talks. No, I don't think Vance would necessarily have the same effect on them. I think he's much more cerebral. He's much more careful in what he says, and he seems to be a person with a scholarly bent, something I would never accuse Trump of being. As you see, I have very ambivalent feelings about Trump, although I admit I voted for him. But in the case of Vance, I like him very much. I think he'd be a very good leader, but I don't know whether he would connect to Trump's base.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. I mean, time will only tell. I do wonder how. I do wonder how the Trump followers and the Trump base, how loyal they are to Trump, given that if Trump does sort of, pass the mantle to Vance, if they will just willingly follow through and following the edicts of J.D. Vance. But you're right, it will be still difficult for them, I think, to follow through on that, given J.D. Vance's personality. And I do think that as far as the administration is concerned, J.D. Vance's personality complements with Trump's fairly well. I would agree with you on your opinions of Trump. I personally, and I've said this on my show before, I personally don't find him appealing. However, I do recognize that he is the greatest mobilizing force of the conservative movement today in the United States. And it goes without saying. And, as much as I personally don't like some of his rhetoric, I can't deny the facts here. So I do have to support him, and I did vote for him for that. Yeah, it will be very interesting to see how Vance will be able to connect with the base, even with the younger people. I know people have mentioned that Vance was a great pick because he is younger. He's a millennial, so he's able to connect with the millennial voting base, which I guess it is true technically, but he is of that same age group and that demographic. But you're right in that the populist movements in general don't seem to gravitate towards figures like that. And I think he may be a brilliant politician in his own right. He's clearly very smart and very strategic. But it remains to be seen how he will animate the movement. Given that he does fail to animate or continue animating the movement in the same way Trump does, after the mantle has been passed to J.D. Vance, what do you think will happen? Do you think that the MAGA movement will just fizzle out completely?
No, they will have to find somebody. run. They have a perfectly good candidate in Ron DeSantis, who speaks well, an excellent governor. Again, he doesn't really, the people don't like him. That nationwide, he cannot fill the role of being a populist leader in the way that Trump can. I have these friends who say, well, yeah, they say, I like DeSantis better. And I would say, I like DeSantis better too. But Trump's base does not, and that's the important thing. So, I don't think DeSantis is going to fulfill that role. I think Vance may, as you indicated, if Trump sort of passes the mantle to him, and tells him that this is my handpicked successor. But I don't think they'll feel the same enthusiasm for him that they've manifested in their support for Trump. I think he's not going to appeal to them to the same degree.
I want to shift gears here. I know we're talking about conservatives quite a bit, but I do want to quickly, briefly focus on, or maybe not so briefly, on leftists and then the Democrat Party. Now, ever since Trump's win, it seems like the Democrats in total are largely demoralized, and I think they will continue feeling demoralized. It will be interesting to see what the evolution of that movement will become, because I don't know if you've watched the DNC elections that had occurred a few weeks ago. I believe it was a little over a month ago at this point, but people were talking about it and kind of making fun of them online, saying like, because during the entire election, the election process, they kept referring to like land acknowledgements. They would still focus on the identity politics, and they would have to refer to certain pronouns. And it's like, it seems like these people didn't learn anything, because it seems like that's mainly the reason why they lost, is that they look incredibly ridiculous to your normal, everyday, average, salt of the earth American. What do you think the future of the Democratic Party is, or even progressivism or leftism in America in general?
I'm going to shock you what I'm going to say now.
Okay.
I think one has to understand the left, the present left, in its own terms. It is not Marxist. It has nothing to do with Marxism. In fact, it has no real working class base. Its base is among culturally radical capitalists, government workers, racial minorities, feminists, and so forth. In the late 1960s, the Democratic Party is going to undergo an important shift when it sort of moves away from being a working class party to becoming sort of a social justice party aimed at particular groups like blacks, gays, and so forth. It sort of expands this list. And it doesn't make this change entirely in 1 year. But if you sort of look at the progression of the Democratic Party, the civil rights movement, gay rights, feminism, and so forth, it has very definitely moved in sort of a socially, culturally radical direction, and is much less of the working class party that it was under John F. Kennedy, certainly under Franklin Roosevelt and so forth. It is a very different party, just as the Republican Party under Trump is a very different party from what it was under the Bush family, right? It's a working class party. It doesn't serve country club Republicans or run to do the bidding of the Wall Street Journal editorial page every day. So I mean, it has changed considerably, and it's taken on immigration and so forth. So, but in the case of the left, I think it has been able to create a very different base from the one that it had in the 1960s or even 1970s, or even in the Clinton administration. And its base was large enough so that Kamala Harris, who is not the swiftest candidate, nonetheless only fell 2 million votes behind Donald Trump, who was a vigorous, brilliant candidate, campaigning all over the country. Okay, now that is the Democratic Party at its worst now. If you look at Trump's popularity, I think it's like 52%. 48% don't like him, who are going to vote for the Democrats, obviously. So the Democrats are not in a bad position. I mean, I think they've made a transition from being a working class party to being a woke party, and have done a very good job of it. Now, I say the fact that we may dislike them or find them bizarre, repulsive, everything else, and I do find them bizarre and repulsive, doesn't mean they can't win. Because there are enough people in this country who buy into this woke ideology, who have vested interest, in this bloated government that Elon Musk is now going after. So all the people are running to defend it because they have an interest. They're getting money from the government, or their friends are getting money from the government. So I would not discount the Democrats. I know they're behaving like jerks and they're jumping around and noise and screaming and getting kicked out of Congress. But a lot of people are probably on their side right now. And I don't think one should generalize by the way we react to them. And I must admit that I react very negatively to the Democrats. I always go back to something that I remember seeing. Hitler was giving a speech in the Sportpalast in Berlin, and there was some cardinal of the church or principal was standing there making faces as if, this man's a fool. Well, I mean, I don't think Hitler necessarily gave a very logical speech or, particularly attractive. We find attractive. He certainly appealed to people. And, I think it's a mistake to say that because we don't like something, it's not going to succeed. And I think the Democrats are in a highly competitive position right now, and they could possibly win. As scary as that thought is, I think it's quite possible for them to win.
That is a very interesting answer. I will say, I don't know how you feel. What do you feel about, or what do you think about the tariff? The recent tariffs that Trump wanted to raise against Canada, Mexico, and China. Do you think that would affect how Americans view? Because I know that obviously the effects of that would be things are still going to be more expensive, particularly like very necessary products. And what I said on my show on Tuesday after this had occurred was that I was actually not too happy about that decision from Trump, because I think that other than immigration, I think one of the major reasons why people voted for Trump is that it was a reaction to what we had experienced under COVID, but also the prices of basic goods have just completely skyrocketed since then. And, the Americans' initial reaction is to vote for the other side after that had occurred, that the housing market is completely ridiculous. The job market is not doing so well. People can't really afford even basic groceries now, or even rent. And so I said, if this directly impacts the economy yet again, and I'm talking about the tariffs, that may actually discourage people from wanting to support Trump. Of course, we may offset that with other policies that Trump is doing to cut back on the budget for other programs and agencies. But I was sort of worried about the tariff situation. What is your take on that?
I totally agree with you. Okay. I think it was a disastrous decision. And I don't know how much he's going to save, because you're going to get these hack Democratic district judges all over trying to shoot down any attempt to close down some bloated bureaucracy or to cut back on money that there's, and they, of course, Alito is right that they have no jurisdiction. This is all made up. But meanwhile, the Supreme Court is behind these attempts to hamper Trump in closing, saving the people money, closing down useless not just useless, but predatory bureaucracies. I mean, and bring back some of this money. So I don't think it's going to make that much difference. There's no question that the tariffs are going to have a very, very negative impact on pricing for food, particularly, which people are going to start noticing. The price of eggs, or the price of bread, stuff coming from Canada. I understand that these other countries have taken gross advantage of us, but this is not the way to go about fixing it. I think Trump is sort of a transactional president, but I think in this case his actions are probably not going to work very, very well. And there are alternatives. You can negotiate, you can bargain, you can do other things without imposing these tariffs. The only tariff that I think was justified was the one against China, which cheats all over.
Yeah, no, that one made sense.
And they deserve anything they get. But with Canada and Mexico, I think was a bad idea. Or doing it with, even though the European Union takes gross advantage of us, again, yeah, there are ways of doing this without, this certainly in the short term, it's just going to drive up prices for imported goods.
Yeah. No, and I understand on the one hand, like the need for someone in the chat is writing reciprocity. I understand the need for reciprocity, and also, we do have to posture ourselves on the international stage in a certain way. But yet again, I mean, once again, like I said, we have to look at the long-term effects of this, and Americans are. They at the end of the day, I really do think that your average American is just concerned with what, impacts them directly, individually, and their families. And if you can't have families, and this is another thing I talk about on my show quite a bit, is that a lot of people in the right wing are complaining about the replacement rate and how we aren't having enough kids. Well, we can't have kids, we can't have families if the housing market isn't doing well or the economy isn't doing well. And I think that's one of the major contributors for that. Or, like, for instance, I've heard that timber, the tariffs on Canada will greatly affect timber coming into our country. That price will skyrocket. And I've heard that Trump is seeking out deforestation projects here in the country to offset that. And, and once again, I do relate to, and I can understand the conversation about having things and making things here in our own country. And, there's perhaps a reason why we should seek that out. We are highly dependent on other countries for our goods. But on the other hand, we are one of the wealthiest nations in the world. And there is a reason why we are so interdependent in the global market and with the other countries, even in our alliances, because in a way that also contributes to us being a superpower in the world. So there is sort of this balance between handling certain relations with other countries, whether that be trade or certain allianceships, and not. I suppose Trump is doing a very reactive approach to bring us back to that balance, but within the next 4 years, though, with such a small time period, I don't know how that will affect voting patterns in the future. But regardless, I do have, we are hitting the 40-minute mark, that's fine, but I do want to ask you this one last question. It's a little bit of a heated question, perhaps, but what I do see with the right-wing movement, and this is sort of going back to the immigration question, because I talk about immigration quite a lot on my show. It's one of the issues that I'm really passionate about, and I think a lot of Americans are right now. But similar with the H-1B visa question that I asked you, is that there are people and Americans, even people within my generation, younger people, that do have this sense of revitalized nationalism. They want a national party. They want officials in office to actually promote the ideas and the ideologies of the American right. This is why the America First slogan is so popular. And I've heard people bring up that, we're not an economic zone, like I said, but bring up the quote that we are a national people. With the right-wing movement and where it's going right now, do you think that there's going to be a greater sense of ethnic foundationalism as far as that is concerned, as far as the citizenry of the American electorate is concerned? The reason why I ask this is because, for instance, the popularity of Vivek Ramaswamy. I know a lot of Trump supporters also like Vivek. I personally don't, for other reasons. I don't like his business dealings in the past or in his past. But there are people that had issues with him being a Hindu. And I don't really have a position on that one way or the other. He seems to have assimilated just fine. But I've seen a lot of people within my generation, the right wing, saying that he is a Hindu and he doesn't, embody sort of those Western virtues that we are looking for. Do you think this will lead to a future within the right wing or American conservatism that will rely heavily on ethnic nationalism to justify certain, people seeking certain positions of power or office, or how we even define our nation?
Yeah, I think in the case of the United States, I'm not quite sure I understand nationalism because the country is so diverse. And you have to find some basis to create a national. Now, this is not difficult for Estonians. or Poles or Israelis or I can think of many Japanese, right? Because they do have an ethnic identity, they have a history together in a national history. In the case of the United States, the ties that bind seem to be almost sort of artificial at this point. Like we believe in natural right, or we believe in the Constitution, or we believe in the Declaration of Independence. There has to be something, I would think, uh, more, more compelling that holds groups together. Um, I think you do see something like a kind of racial nationalism, but it's so peripheral. I mean, in the case of the United States, and part of it is you do have all these ethnicities already. It's sort of hard to push that principle. And the same thing may be true about Christian nationalism, which doesn't seem really all that nationalist to me, and typically centers on reviving the social morality that existed when I was a kid in the 1950s. Um, I really don't see this nationalism resulting in something like tribalism in the case of the United States. Um, in fact, I'm always thinking about exactly what is this nationalism to consist of in this country. I think much of it is an understandable and defensible reaction against the hate America stuff. That as an academic, I hear all the time that they had slaves and they mistreated blacks and this. And but this was generally extended to the entire Western world, not just the United States in the end. I mean, everybody was bad, but it was, particularly aimed at the United States. And I always found myself defending this country against, I thought, these ridiculous, extravagant accusations from people who should probably leave the country if they hated it as much as they seem to. Of course, they always had cushy jobs and weren't going to leave. It's it's like my argument with people: if you really believe in affirmative action, why do you as a white male keep that job? You should give it, to a black lesbian or something, or have some victim member of a victim group, right? So I think a lot of this is a reaction that people are feeling, I was absolutely incensed when these people, went sing the Star Spangled Banner and were making, mocking the American flag. I usually don't react like this, but I thought this was absolutely outrageous. And I think a lot of this sort of America first and American nationalism is a reaction against the hate America people on the left. That's and the attempt to find some kind of positive identity as Americans. And I think also this attempt, which we have now, to make English the official language.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't care that much about the issue. However, when I hear people saying we have 365 languages, then I favor Trump's position because you see how crazy the other side is.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a kind of reaction to these people on the other side.
Absolutely, yeah. Though that's a really good point. In a way, this is sort of like a reaction. Hence us being reactionaries, you could say, as conservatives. But that's interesting, and that's what I feel the same way. It's very difficult to ascertain the future with that because, once again, especially within younger people, they're saying that they want or they foresee a future of the right-wing movement in America, at least, being settled on the question of ethnic foundationalism. And it's so difficult to accomplish because, like you've rightly pointed out, with Christian nationalism, in part, you could argue that, our country was founded on Christian virtues and on the culture surrounding that, but it would be so difficult to implement considering how diverse our country is. And that is sort of the uniqueness of the project of America, or the American project, is its founding. It's not like really not any other country in the world. So it will be interesting how that goes. But seeing how further right the populist movement is going in the United States, it remains to be seen how effective that will be with that rhetoric. But anyway, Paul, I want to thank you so much for joining Culturama and my show. It is very much appreciated. You said earlier in the room with me on Zoom that you don't have any really social media presence. Is that correct? There's no accounts people can follow you on?
Well, I am the editor-in-chief of Chronicles magazine, so you can look me up there. And I've written a lot of books. So
there you go. Was it about 15 books, I think?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Quite a few.
I've gone through a number of editions when they're still around, stuff that I wrote back in the 1970s. So
But there was one you could really recommend to our audience today. What would the title of that be?
That's sort of hard. Which would you? The books that I enjoyed, really, the books I enjoyed writing were the books on fascism.
Gotcha.
The Career of a Concept. And there's a book on anti-fascism. I did a book which did very well called After Liberalism, which Princeton published in 1999, which argues that liberalism dies around 1900, regal liberalism, and we have now is a managerial state coupled with mass democracy. It's not even a national democracy; it's mass democracy, and that book came out in 1999. But anyhow, if you just go online, you'll find there's lots of books that I wrote, and some of them may be of interest to your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be throwing those online here to show to my audience after you leave here, but so they can see what books they can look up. And you mentioned After Liberalism would probably be a good one to throw out there for you guys if you're interested in that. Paul, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to quickly go on commercial break here, but really much appreciated. And like I said, you are a legendary academic here and the movement that I talk about here on this show. And, I'm really thankful that you had the time to join my show today.
Thank you. Please look up my magazine, Chronicles Magazine.
And I'll pull that up as well.
We're looking for subscribers.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. I'll pull it up as well.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, let's all gather around.
Well, here comes Daniela like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style you can't resist. On Conservatism, baby, we're shaking up the scene. So hit that like, make it click, you know what we mean. Like and subscribe, come on, don't delay. With Daniela at the helm, we're leading the way. It's Conservatism, taking back tomorrow today.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah. Who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have Glad You Came Out, and I'm so happy that you're queer in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hayford doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Hey, Liberty lovers, stop scrolling, because if you're tired of the same old news, then I've got just the wake-up call for you. I want to thank you for tuning in to Culturama, and I know that you're enjoying every minute of it. Join us at rumble.com/AP4Liberty. The Wake Up America show is Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. It's a great way to start your day. Coffee's optional, but waking up is mandatory. Remember, at Wake Up America, we'll keep you sharp, we'll keep you laughing, most of all, we'll keep you free. I'll see you in the morning.
Well, here comes Anita like Marilyn with a twist. She's got a master's degree and a style that you can't resist. On Culturama, baby, we're shaking.
Okay, everyone, what did you think about that interview? I think that was pretty great. We touched on a lot of wonderful topics there, and I did see you guys donate in the chat. So let me quickly read you guys' donations in case I didn't miss anything. I did see that Bucks Nasty. You donated $10. You said, let's go for Leo time. I will unleash the beast here in a moment. And we have another $10 from Bucks Nasty saying, great interview. Thank you so much, Bucks. Before I bring Leo on, I promised Paul that I would pull up his, here we go, Chronicles magazine. I will pull up his information here. And hold on a second, everyone. Let me pull up some of the information that I wanted to get you. Where is it? I've written it down. Second, it is. There we go. After liberalism. Okay, so I'm not subscribing to that website, Paul. There we go. Okay, you guys, before I bring out Leo, I promised that I would show his info. So everyone, this is the book that he recommended, you guys. It is called After Liberalism, Mastermocracy in the Managerial State from Paul Edward Gottfried. Highly recommend this book. You can find it on Amazon. You can just Google it. Once again, that is After Liberalism. This guy is written about 15 books at this point, so if this doesn't seem interesting to you, there's a plenty more, and you already know what he writes about. So please take a look into Paul Gottfried's wonderful publications here. Also, Chronicles Magazine, a magazine of American culture. Highly recommend this. He's an editor-in-chief for Chronicles Magazine, so please look into that as well. But that was probably one of the best interviews I've had on my show, regardless of the audio issues that we may have had, if there were any. But I highly recommend Dr. Paul Gottfried's works, everyone. So please look into Chronicles Magazine as well as his works, particularly After Liberalism. Okay, everyone, you know what time it is, okay? Hang on a second. I am balancing a lot of plates here. Where is the meter? Because you guys know what happened. It is time to bring out my dog, everyone. You all donated. I wasn't expecting the Leo goal to be reached today of all days, but here we are. We have reached the Leo goal. So everyone, I'll be bringing out my dog for the rest of the stream. We only have a couple minutes here left. So, and then I will hand it off to Liberty Tonight show. So everyone, I will be right back. Hang tight, and I will be bringing out Leo here.
In the heart they gather strong, pushing back the lefty's throng. With the red banner held high, marching forward through the night. Promises of old will keep, as the donkeys start to weep. Stars and stripes forever sway, in the land of the brave we stay. We've got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down.
With a flagpole planted firm,
Golden dreams that won't decay,
marching proudly through the day.
in the eagle's shadow by, we find our strength and take our pride. Let the voices echo loud, tearing through the waiting crowd. We've got the power now, in the heart of every town. We've got the power now, the Reds are going down. Across the plains and mountains tall, hear the victory call. With courage and with might we strive, in the light of freedom's sky. We got the power now.
Monster kill.
Oh, my little chihuahua, you run so fast. With your goofy little bark, always having a blast. When you dance on your paws, like you're on a spree. Chasing your tail, oh, what joy you bring me. My tiny furry friend, you light up my day. In your 1950 style, let's dance and play.
Thank you, everyone that has donated. I really appreciate you. I'm supposed to cut off this stream in a minute, so I apologize. But we did have $5 by Rowhouse. Rowhouse, you've just joined us. Thank you so much. I had an interview with Paul Gottfried. You should probably wind back and watch that interview. It was pretty good. But you asked me, Daniela, my question tonight will be about the Supreme Court and Amy Coney Barrett. The street shows her in the news again. Leo's view too. Leo, what do you think of the situation? I've already talked about it on stream, but what do you think of the Amy Coney Barrett situation? Not much. Do you like Amy Coney Barrett? Do you think she's longhousing us? I do. Rowhouse, to answer your question briefly here, because I have to cut off the stream right now. I'm so sorry. But I did see your donation, Rowhouse. And to answer your question, if you want my full take, you can wind back. I do talk about it at like the halfway hour mark before my interview with Paul. It's a story I covered right before Paul's. But it is sort of longhousey. I will say I'm rather disappointed, but we have been having issues with Amy Coney Barrett for quite some time for the last few months. And although I don't want to take the stance that she should be an activist judge, just like those on the other side do, I will try to remain principled. If she truly finds it unconstitutional, then it is. But at the same time, the powers that they give the district court the district court judge that made that decision, I think, was rather questionable. Now, of course, I'm not going to suggest that or pose that I'm some kind of legal scholar, so I cannot make that assertion. But myself, with a lot of confidence, but I am rather disappointed. But anyway, thank you everyone that have come on Culturama. Now, I do have to end it here. Unfortunately, I would go on for longer, but we have the Liberty Tonight show right after mine, so you guys should tune into that. But if you want to watch me longer this on stream, please check me out this Saturday. I will be doing a gaming stream, and yes, I will be covering trending news topics, politics, the usual culture, but I'll also be gaming as well. So if you want to watch me suck at Cuphead, then please watch me on the gaming stream this Saturday, okay? And let me pull up the Liberty Tonight show to drop in the chat here. Leo is totally Longhouse. Barney Styles, how could you tell? Leo Longhouse, are you kidding me? No, I've never. A male dog wearing pink knitted sweaters? Definitely not. Okay. Let me pull up the chat for the Liberty Tonight. Wasn't that a great interview with Paul? I really enjoyed that. Okay. They already started. Okay, everyone, I'm going to drop the link here in the chat. There you go. Join the Liberty Tonight show, everyone, and please catch me this Saturday.
In the heart they gather strong, pushing back the lefty's throng. With the red banner held high, marching forward through the night.
Thank you so much for your donations.
Promises of old will keep as the donkeys start to weep. Stars and stripes forever sway. In the land of the brave we stay. We've got the power now in the heart of every town. We've got the power now. The Reds are going down.
With a flagpole planted firm,
golden dreams that won't decay,
marching proudly